Today, I have with me Baba Awopetu, someone I met many years ago. And as he's reminded me, he came for a job with me, actually. I didn't give him the job. It was an RBM job. Now, I knew he was destined for greater things, as I think I told him at the time. He probably didn't believe me at the time. He probably just wasn't happy I didn't give him a job. However, his subsequent outstanding career in marketing and not in sales proves I was right, although we're probably going to get into the mixture of sales and marketing and how they are two sides of the same coin. So Baba is a marketing strategist at Stragmar. He has spent the last 2 decades in senior strategy and marketing roles spanning Europe, Middle East, and Africa, so the entirety of the world, effectively. He began his career in the pharmaceutical sector, selling in the B2B environment with Pfizer. He progressed into marketing with Roche, and then relocated to Switzerland to take an international marketing role with Stryker. Now, he held several roles at Stryker, including EMEA Marketing Director, Director of Marketing Excellence, amongst a few of those. He then returned to the UK, where he led the introduction of a novel consumer health brand into the UK market with Danone. Now, today, he's a consultant, and he specializes in strategy, segmentation, innovation, and he's helping to transfer marketing best practice across industry sectors. So in other words, as with all my guests, he's an expert in the topic that we're going to be discussing. And the reason we're going to be talking about the aim of marketing on today's podcast is because Baba says the definition and scope of marketing strategy, which people often talk about incessantly, is not nearly as important as the aim. So that's what we're going to be talking about, the aim of marketing strategy. So welcome, Baba.
Thank you. I was wondering there how you were going to present the fact that you did indeed pass me off on the RBM job back then. No, but it's been great, and obviously it's been wonderful over the years, connecting and exchanging. As you rightly said, I very quickly fell in love with marketing, and I've had some period of time in a range of marketing roles. So this point about marketing, when you say that the definition of marketing versus the aim of marketing, often what you find is that when people say marketing, I think most of us can imagine what a marketing department is like and the kind of roles that you have in it. I think where I'm more pointing towards is to say the definitions often differ and people mean different things when they talk about what marketing is, what marketing strategy is. And where I'm sort of presenting and saying, what are we trying to achieve? What is marketing's purpose? Why do we need marketing? And what does marketing stand to help us to do? And fundamentally, I go one step further back to help with that to say, well, what happens if we do marketing really well? What does marketing excellence look like? Not looks like in terms of what are the elements of it, because God knows there's lots of definitions around that. But what does it look like in terms of output? What will I feel as an organization if I am blessed with marketing excellence? And I think when marketing is done really well, selling is easy. Selling is easy. When marketing is done really well, I think your customers are chasing you. When marketing is done really well, I think you spend less time talking about pricing and discounts. When marketing is done really well, I think you have engagement of not just your customers and your internal staff, but your all stakeholder, your ecosystem is engaged. So then if that is what it looks like when it's done really well, when we come to define what is it and what do we need to do, ultimately, we need to bear in mind that that is the end point that we're aiming for. And whatever we define or conjure together or construct to form a vision or construction of what marketing is, it needs to answer that question. It needs to be aiming to deliver that. And if it cannot influence or deliver that, then it's not marketing. And so typically, I like to make sure that we start with what are we trying to do? What is the purpose? What am I, as the marketing leader, the marketing organization, trying to influence? And I think what we're trying to influence is much more about creating an ecosystem, adding a catalyst to the organization that allows this symbiotic relationship between the customers, the organization, and the offering.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very critical point in terms of what you're trying to achieve, and some of the examples you gave in terms of, if it's done correctly, you're not going to have to reduce your prices. If it's done correctly, people are chasing you. And the example I always use in all my podcasts, and I think anyone who knows me knows I'm not an Apple person. I'm not a lover of Apple, but Apple do marketing correctly, and that's why when a new iPhone comes out, there's a queue around the block, and they don't give discounts. BMW don't give discounts. Audi don't give discounts, because they know actually we've got a quality product. We're going to market it to the right segment, and therefore the people who want it are prepared to pay that money. Whereas when it's not done correctly, people are dropping prices all over the place because they think, there's a competitor, and if I don't drop it, I'm not going to get it. It's because you're not doing marketing correctly. So I completely concur with that. So is marketing, and this is a conversation that we often have within businesses, is marketing solely the domain of the marketing department?
Yeah, so I think that it's an interesting thing. Marketing is a fascinating function and part of a discipline in business. But what's happened over the years is that it's almost like marketing got too greedy. It tried to grab too much, tried to own too much, and often it ends up owning nothing. Or the t-shirt and the brochure and promotion and, the results from PPC, which, by the way, Google's saying, well, I'm not quite sure I need someone to man that anymore. Just tell me what you want, we'll look after the rest. The issue is that marketing done well means identify the right customers, identify what those customers need, I then develop and deliver and communicate that proposition to that group of customer. Now, I've not met many marketing departments that can do that. I've met lots that can talk about it, but this is not a department's job. There's no way. This is a role that requires the whole organization. That is why I always argue the first chief marketing officer of every organization should be the CEO.
No, and I think it's an interesting concept that I try to discuss in all businesses, because lots of businesses, they'll always say, oh, that's the salesperson's job, that's the marketeer's job, why haven't they done this? And you're thinking, right, so you don't believe as a customer service person or as a finance person or as any touch point that you have a responsibility to deliver what we're trying to deliver to the customer, because what we're trying to deliver to the customer is not reliant, as you just said, on the marketing department. It's not reliant on one individual. It's, I think, just as you put, the CEO has to have the vision, and then he has to then drive that through the organization. So the whole organization sees themselves as a sales and marketing department to deliver on what the company goals are, what the company's vision are. And I've not seen many companies that actually do that very, very well. I mean, and Apple, again, is almost a good example. I don't know so much as now, because I think Apple's kind of not still making a lot of money, but in terms of the way the vision was when Steve Jobs was there, you could see that everybody at Apple, the Genius bars, the Apple shops, that's him pushing that through the organization and creating an environment where every touch point is a sales opportunity for that organization, which comes from the top. And I don't think that we do it that well. So moving on from that point of view, how do we link, which is a question that people are always talking about when you're looking at a marketing department and marketing. So you're trying to delight the customer. How does that then link down back to try to delight the shareholder? Because people tend to think that those two things are completely different, and that you focus on the customer and then the shareholders will deal with themselves. As long as you're making money, then it's all right. How do those two things mix together?
Yeah, so one of the things I think is to deal with fundamentals in terms of this. So the fundamentals that most businesses exist to try to solve problems for their customers. And when we talk about segmentation and targeting, all we're talking about is using precise tools and techniques to define the market so that we can answer these questions really well. And if you look at the moment, take the COVID vaccines that we've got, and you could see the rush, the scramble. Now, I understand that, the pandemic created a particular ecosystem that meant that, there was a bit of panic and an emergency in the world. But think about the argument people were having with some of the organizations that were providing this vaccine. The arguments were, no, you were supposed to supply me with 10. What do you mean I'm only getting 5? No, I need my supply. So actually, in other words, the answer to the question was so good and so rare that actually the only fight that was going on was about how much can I get and how quickly. So I think that the secret is around sustainable differentiation. One of the things that happened in our healthcare sector a decade or two back was that in order to get product to market, they started to say, Baba, it's not good enough that you have a product that can address this particular issue. What I need you to be able to do is to demonstrate that it does it better or differently to what I've already got. So, and this is the point, is around this point about not just can you answer the question. It is important to answer the question better, because that ecosystem of everybody trying to answer questions better is what the real creation of value is. And I think that the delighting of customers and shareholder is really around marketing, defining and understanding the customer's problems and the gaps that exist, and motivating, challenging the organization to come up with new answers to those questions, not existing answers. And how often do you hear things like, oh, that company's got this feature, when could we get that feature added to our product? And too often product development goes in this kind of feature and there's not enough. And you mentioned Apple, right? None of us asked for the iPad, but when we got it, we went, oh yeah, that's what I need. That's the role of marketing. You're framing problem. You're observing things that Baba and Hakeem needs, but they have not quite been able to articulate it yet. And then you're coming up with a solution. And when you give them the solution, they go, yes, how did you know? That's marketing. And that's what we need to get good at doing really, really well, which means that not that we as the marketing department needs to solve it. We need to be able to communicate, inspire our colleagues in engineering and R&D and manufacturing to be able, and we need to get them so that we can speak in the same languages and that there is this understanding. And I'm a big believer that marketing training must not be just for the marketing department. I think the whole organization needs a certain level of marketing awareness. We are all marketers.
So why do you believe that lots of organizations do it so badly and don't take that holistic approach?
Well, I'm going to sort of challenge that a little bit. I think here's what I think happens. In truth, what happens is somewhere in the middle of the two scenarios we've just painted. In all honesty, the good leaders and the good management team know that the marketing team cannot be responsible for their marketing, in quotes. But it's not formalized, it's not expressed. And because organizations tend to be structured by your finance, your sales, your marketing, you end up with this scenario that we're trying to be really precise about what each part does. And also, it just makes it maybe easier to manage, because if you start doing all this, everybody's a marketer, it's like, whoa, all of it can create, well, what are you responsible for? And so in order to avoid that, it's partly the issue. But I'm clear. I mean, so sometimes at my church, I would give a talk to people who are trying to improve their CV and they're trying to get jobs. So the first thing I always say to them is anybody in here in sales or marketing at all? And usually the room is quiet, nobody says anything. I say, okay, guys, just do me a favor. Can you just tell me who's going to help to sell to market you? Who's responsible for it? And a quick look to the left and right, and then realize the spotlight is on me, because actually we all need a certain level of sales and marketing awareness. These are survival skills in many ways. And I think for an organization, everybody in the organization we need that so that they understand. I have when I'm giving lectures, I have a simple illustration that I use, and I say to people, one is I say, "Did you used to have a Sony Walkman?" And if there are some middle-aged people in the room, they'll quietly say, "Yeah, I had one of those." So don't worry, I'm not asking for anybody's age. So you had a Sony Walkman. Say, I loved it. It was great, brilliant. Do you still have it? Oh no, Baba. Don't be so. Okay, you don't have it anymore. Do you have a Discman? No. But I had one of them though. And do you have you must have an iPod. Oh no, I don't have one of those. But why would I have that? Why don't you have it? Well, I've got an iPhone. So I go, okay. What business was the Sony Walkman in? And the point that I tried to drive to them is to understand this fact that actually, ultimately, it's all about answering questions. People wanted entertainment on the go. They never wanted a Walkman. They don't want an iPhone. But today's answer is called iPhone. But what is tomorrow's answer? And I often challenge them. I say, okay, guys, come on. You're now in the R&D department. It doesn't take long before someone says, well, what if I have headphones and, I could voice control and I can access all the music in the world? And they go, and it goes. It's because ultimately, and it is important that the whole organization thinks like that. And we stop thinking about what feature the competitors got, because that leads us down a very narrow path. And it doesn't allow us to fulfill the true potential of what marketing can be and can deliver.
It's very interesting, actually, because I remember quite some time ago, and I've become almost obsessive about it, about understanding the user and the market and the actual people and the market, because that's exactly what Apple have done. They've understood what we need before we even need it, and that's by studying human behavior and lots of stuff in lots of times. And there's a company, I can't remember, I've still been trying to track it down. I've listened to it on the news, and they were talking about that all they do is it's not, they don't even call it user testing, it's user studying. So, for example, in a healthcare environment, for example, they'll go into a hospital and they'll just sit there for like 3 weeks, just watching how the doctor uses the product. So they then start saying, oh, well, that's an issue, and that's an issue. And the doctor don't even know it's a problem, because they're just so used to doing what they've done for the past 30 years. And it's by understanding that they then bring in, as you heard about, new features, benefits, but mainly benefits, to say, well, actually, they have an issue there. If we can help them with that issue there, that makes their job and their life much easier. So that's what we need to focus on developing, as opposed to, as you said, oh, the competitors just brought out this new connected whatever, so we need to have a connected. Well, what is the problem that is actually solving? Because if it's just a nice to have, yeah, people might like it, but they're not going to pay you for it because they don't see it as an issue. So I suppose, let me reframe my question. What can you do to improve the environment so that marketeers or the company starts viewing a more holistic way of doing it? So how do you get from that middle ground to the nirvana?
Yeah, so I think that the first thing is that this point around orientation, to start to communicate, train, and teach the organization that we all exist because of the customer, but not doing it as a catchphrase, demonstrating it, walking them through it, so that they understand that the reason we get money in the bank on a daily basis is because we solve this problem and that problem and that problem and that problem. Because ultimately that's what it's about. And then also to make sure, for example, whether it's sales, whether it's in finance, that each function is part of the value creation. And each function needs to think about, how can I create more value for customer? How can I enhance the value that we're creating for customers? And think about how, I'm going to give you an opportunity now for a sales job. I know you weren't expecting this, but I'm actually going to offer you a job right now. And you have two options, right? You are either going to be the sales director for Baba Cola. It's a new fizzy cola. It's quite nice. Or you could be the sales director for Coca-Cola. Which do you want to, which job do you want? I hope you're not laughing about Baba Cola.
Not at all.
But the point is that ultimately, when we meet and answer questions properly for customers, then of course a good salesman can sell anything. But that's not proper sales. Proper sales is not about selling anything. That almost crosses the line. Proper sale is about helping the customer to understand the value that you are creating. But how much easier is that when the process was done the right way round? Not throw it over the fence and see what you could do and you've got targets, but if we actually were really obsessed about, no, we're going to find a solution to that problem. That's been going on for too long. We can solve it. Come on, guys. And you come up with answers, then of course it's more. So I think it's around really start being obsessed about solving problem and answering and the whole organization being oriented. That's marketing. You know what's interesting? How often I've seen people try to put a creative brief together and the agency will go, right, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we could do the integrated comms. Give us a brief. Like, who's your target audience? What's special about the product? And they go, oh, we need some time. Huh? Sorry? No. Time to do what? No. Not a new product. This product that you already have on the market. That's the one I'm telling you. And that is the fundamental issue, that whole thought process of we made this product for this group of people with this kind of problem. This is how it solves it. And by the way, I know Baba's got a solution and Hakeem's got a solution, but theirs doesn't do this, and that's why ours exist. Now, creative agency accentuate it, bring emotions into it. That's you could work with that, and often it becomes a very kind of product. What's the next series? And in the hustle and bustle, you lose that piece. And I think that ultimately it is around getting back to basics of why are we here? What are we trying to do? The other day I changed my brand of bagel that I buy. And it's a very interesting story. So I buy bagel, I buy this standard bagel. I don't want to mention any brand. I don't want anyone to sue me. But the bagel, my son is obsessed with it. He'll come, oh, daddy, can I have bagel? So I have to go, I cut it, I put it in the toaster, and then he does the rest himself. But I don't want him handling knife. He's only 6 years old. Then I was in the supermarket one day and I saw one, and it was already sliced. I picked it up. I've never bought the other one since. Because now when he comes, I go, yeah, knock yourself out. He goes, he teases it apart, puts it in the toaster, butters it, and we're good. Some of these things about solving problems, it's not so much about, oh, we need to come up with some radical thing. It's just observing and being deliberate about trying to, no, that's an inconvenience. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. We could do something about that. Look after the inconvenience of your customers. The customers will look after you.
Yeah, and so I know that you talk a lot about marketing myopia. So is that what you're talking about when you're talking about the department? Can you just elaborate a bit more on what you mean by marketing myopia?
So there was a famous article in 1960 by Ted Levitt, who's known as the godfather of marketing in many ways. And really, it's around a really, really narrow product-centric view. That means that in the end, you keep on trying to make a better version of the one that you did last time. And you're really thinking about product rather than a broader view that you say, well, there are no products. There are only markets. In fact, there are only problems. And if people who lived 100 years ago were to come now and observe us, they'll go, oh my goodness, what are all these things? Yeah, because it's often the same problems, but they're new answers to the problem. They're new ways to answer the problem. So addressing it properly, not having a narrow view, means that we think about what is the customer trying to do. So for example, at the moment, I have a car. I drive my car for all sorts of reasons. But I don't want a car. I never woke up and said I wanted a car. I need to go to shop. I need to go to. So you can imagine a day when there's some sort of ecosystem of driverless cars that's running around, and you dial in your app, you say what you're trying to do, and it figures out what's going to be the best way to, and you get them and you get dropped. The point, and how much time will that save? So it is about focusing on what's the problem that the customers have got that they're trying to get over. What are they trying to achieve? And these are we create efficiencies and we create value. And marketing can be an orchestrator in that, in that role. It can help to enlighten, and that's the role of marketing, to be the evangelist who helps people, to remind them. I was in a boardroom once and we were having a management meeting, and I think it got to about 3 o'clock, and I said, gentlemen, ladies, I don't think we've mentioned the customer yet today. And I remember the CEO at the time said, okay, from now on, Baba, we're going to make sure that it's very easy to forget about the customer, even though they should be in the center of the room. It's not deliberate. There's lots going on. You know what's like in the operation and the hustle, the bustle, products, numbers, margin, profits, product launches, competitor, regulation. There's lots going on. It's like, oh yeah, customers, yeah. But let's sort these things out first. And it's really around not making this sort of customer centricity like you're doing the customers a favor. No, it's the best way to do things. It's the best way to do things. And I always remember, if I could be afforded a football analogy, that Pep Guardiola always says that the way he plays football, people describe it as some kind of super sophisticated technique, where he says, no, we play that way because that's the most effective way to win. It's not, I'm not trying to impress you. I'm doing it because that's the best. Customer centricity is not some nice thing to do. When done well, it is the fastest and most effective way to sustain performance.
So, and on that point then, how would you advise that customers become more customer-centric, or they can understand their customer better?
Yeah, so it's a good point. So I think fundamentals, ask good questions. Try to always ask, when you have products, make sure that you're focusing on what's the product trying to do? And spend a lot of time talking about the problem that the product is trying to solve. So if you talk about innovation and product development, talk about what other elements of the problem, how you want to solve the problem better. Talk in languages that is very, very easy to connect with customers. Don't talk about products and product features and things of that nature. And likewise, if we're talking to our customers, like my marketing team, one of my favorite questions is, what's the latest things you've discovered about our customer? What's the latest thing you've learned, that you've discovered? I didn't know this before, but now I realize that, I found this out. Because it is these discoveries. And then often I use surveys a lot across the organization, but not to try to find out how necessary people are feeling, but also to get insight into, how do you think we could make things better? What do you think we could do? What have you noticed? You're sales guys, you spend a lot of time with the customers. What things have you noticed? And trying to get this focus that the organizations start to realize that, look, we exist to serve our customers, not some kind of cliche. It's real. If you feed in areas where there are problems and there are issues, we want to be obsessive about solving them. We want to follow through with it and creating that kind of culture, and knowing that the price at the end of it is that you absolutely do end up, if you and I were to design a tablet that's as effective as our current vaccines for COVID, with no side effect, and would give you the same kind of immune response for 10 years rather than 1 or 2 years. Who should we hire to do the marketing? How long do we spend worrying about the marketing personnel or agency? No, we don't need any marketing. Why? We've done the most important marketing job, which is solving problems, understanding the problem, solving it, and delivering a solution. That is the most important marketing job. But often people think it's about communication. Oh yeah, but we need a new campaign. The product doesn't answer, I know, but that's what I'm saying. The product, it doesn't address what the customers need. That's the issue. We need new agency. Okay, fine, we can get a new agency. And it's this point around, we have to do things in the right order. It's about getting the ladder up against the right building. Yes, of course, there's a role for improved communication, for digital and all the channels that are available. The fundamentals are still true. And I think it's around preaching that, teaching it, educating. That's why I said I would put the whole organization through marketing training, as I would describe it. This point around, why are we here? What are we trying to do? We create value because we answer questions. The better we answer the question, the more value we create. And the way we do it is one of the reasons you're here, Baba. And actually, Baba, here's how you fit in. And here's what we expect you to do as part of helping us to create this value.
Well, it's interesting actually because I often utilize. I'm not a massive motor racer, but I think that seems to be the analogy that best fits, in my opinion, to what a company is trying to aspire to. You've got Lewis Hamilton, who is effectively the marketeer or the salesperson. He's out front. He's the person who you see in front of the customer, but you've got a whole team behind them. You've got the engineering team, and without that team, Lewis Hamilton's winning nothing. And actually, when I've spoken to motor racer people who are into motor racing, what's the most important, the drivers' championship or the builders' championship? They say, well, probably the builders' championship, but in the very least, in the motor racing industry, they're both equally seen. Maybe a layman like me just sees Lewis Hamilton,
Yes.
but the people who are really into it are thinking, oh, look at Mercedes, they've won it again and again and again. And that to me is almost like, yeah, Lewis Hamilton's at the sharp end, but then you've got the company and everybody in the company, and he's constantly, if you listen to him talk, he's always talking about his engineers, his relationship with the boss, the relationship with everybody in the company, and they're all focused on how do we make this car go faster. That's what the aim is. How do we make this car go faster, more stable, so it wins more and more races? Not how do we get Lewis Hamilton to win more races. That's an added byproduct. But it's what do we need to do to be successful, and let's make sure that the whole organization is driving, pardon the pun, to achieve that.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point. So you could then see why I must tell everybody in the organization, are we winning? And how we tell them how we're winning, not just our sales revenue, because that's important, but how we're winning. So then it becomes a story, because you have to then tell it to link into, we're making discoveries. Those discoveries we're using to come up with propositions to solve problems. We're delivering those propositions with precision. As a result, this is happening, and this is how we're going to continue that cycle. So you're reinforcing that thought process. So you don't get people sitting there going, I don't know. They don't know the sales. They don't know where and you bring everybody, because everybody feels a part of the same scenario, regardless of what department they happen to sit in. We need everybody to participate in marketing, to feel like they're part of the marketing process.
Okay, so in terms of getting better and improvement and constantly striving to improve, what's the answer then? Is it training the marketing department? I mean, you've already said everybody should get marketing training, but obviously I can't say categorically no one's getting better, but it seems that what you just outlined in terms of the mistakes that people make are things that people have been making for the past 20, 30 years, and it doesn't seem necessarily to be getting better. So what's the answer to actually get them to that stage?
Well, I think it's a good point. I think always remember the couple of things is that until a better proposition comes up, obviously, whatever is available, the customers are pragmatic. They do have challenges and progress that they need to make, but ultimately they will go with the best solution that's available at now. The reason why companies go out of business and so forth and product become obsolete is because obviously from time to time you get those answers. The second thing is that within the healthcare arena in particular, the R&D, the engineers, the scientists are phenomenal. They're phenomenal. And they have, from a product point of view, come up with some superb answers to questions over time. And it has meant that marketing has been needed, but has not been needed to the same extent as you have in other industries. Now, I think that we are increasingly moving into a space where we do much more need to behave like some of our consumer FMCG cousins, not necessarily in terms of techniques, but in terms of philosophy, in terms of how we think about marketing, because ultimately, at this point in time, it is fair to say that if you were looking to say where's the industry where you have the best marketers, you probably wouldn't look at the healthcare industry as being your starting point. And to be honest with you, that's obvious. It's a bit like, that's why athletes go to altitude to train. Why? Because when they train there, so it's not. It makes sense. It's not. It's not a slight. We have phenomenal marketers within the healthcare arena, but our environment is just not as harsh as what some of our colleagues face. And in our environment, it does make you that much sharper. And I think that now is the moment to, with all the marketing transformation projects and things of this that are going on, now is the moment to really think about marketing beyond the department. Beyond the department, not just the department. And of course, we need to do PPC really well. We need to do digital really well. We need to do CRM, data analytics. And obviously, we're not talking about those things in this discussion now. And absolutely, I agree. But those are the tactical elements. The bigger piece is, how do we put the piece all together so that it's working not just as a sales support engine, but as an engine that's at the very least a sales partner. And often what you find is that marketing has often in many scenarios been relegated to the role of sales support. And partly it's because we've not found the right way to be able to orchestrate and to play this role of helping the whole organization to answer the broader question. But looking at performance, we're not competing against Apple yet.
Yeah.
But the question we should always ask ourselves is that, in all sincerity, what do we think it would be like if we were? Or Amazon? And so it's those are the question, and ultimately those organizations would address and try to answer the question perhaps completely differently to what we have. And therefore, we should feel free to challenge our business model, challenge what we do and why we do. And often when we're looking for 10 to 15% growth, it doesn't encourage to be radical. It tends to encourage us to be incremental in terms of the way that we address things.
So you're effectively saying that it's about philosophy, isn't it? And that's why we're talking about the aim of marketing, because as opposed to looking at the tactical elements, which actually you're probably right, in healthcare, that is what people generally do when they think of marketing. It's all about the tactics and the campaigns and the specific things that we're doing to promote our product, which even if you're looking at the basics of marketing, promotion is just one element of marketing as opposed to philosophy. So are you saying that other industries, and I think what I really like was the point you made about Amazon and Apple, because as you said, we're not competing against them yet, but there's no doubt that there's going to come a point that they're going to see, actually, healthcare makes a lot of money. And actually, there are problems in healthcare that if we work with the right partners, we can help solve. And then
I've noticed already.
Well, yeah, exactly. And then it becomes, right, so are we really going to be able to compete against the marketing machines and the marketing might of Amazon and Apple, because we're still doing what we were doing 30 years ago? And I genuinely believe that in healthcare, actually, specifically, because I've worked outside of healthcare. And when you look at business to business, as you said, necessity is often the mother of invention. So they're forced to do things differently. Whereas in healthcare, it's a nice, safe environment. People are going to buy drugs even if you're not very good at promoting them, actually. So you don't have that imperative to actually change things, because actually, well, we don't do much different than we did 30 years ago, and we're still growing at 20%, 30% every year. So why would we do something radical? So it's that philosophy, isn't it, in terms of understanding what we are actually trying to do before you start understanding what it is you're going to do.
Absolutely. It's purpose. It's basically thinking about what the purpose is, what the role is, and then rolling down from there. And of course, yes, then you need to say, okay, so this whole issue about the problem and defining it and who's the target, how do you do that properly? Yeah, then let's get into a conversation about how do you do segmentation properly, effectively. Then you can learn it. But what I find is that you could teach me segmentation all day long, but I need to get segmentation.
Yes.
It's not just about the teaching. I could know the steps to do it, but it's not the steps that's the issue. We have some of the cleverest people of most industries working within our industries. We don't have an intellectual deficit. What we're talking about here is about orientation. It's about focus. It's about perspective. And because we're quite an insular industry, the healthcare industry, we don't have many cross-fertilization and opportunity to be challenged, to think differently, to look at things differently. And if you add to that the fact that the first thing you start to push around creativity, somebody will say, ooh, regulations. Oh, we're not allowed to do that. Oh, so we've got quite a well-built insulation as to why just the pace that we're going at is the only pace that's possible. Until somebody says, well, actually, maybe it is possible to do this differently, to think about it differently, to organize it differently. And of course, the things that we're discussing are not the microwave solutions. These are not the microwave solutions that you do it today and then 2 weeks' time we start to measure the metrics. These are much more deeper things, and only ones who would engage with this with those who, if you like, catch the bug, who have the belief, who are signed up to the religion, because it's not a 2 minutes, oh, then show me the metrics next day. But those who get it kind of go, yeah, of course, and try to align that way. And it's subtle things. As I said, one bagel company lost a lot of business just because it's not, they're not big things, but over time, you see the difference that this can make.
Yeah, no. So philosophy is the key thing before you start. So that's step one. So in terms of if you had somebody sitting in front of you saying, yeah, get that, got the philosophy down, we know exactly what we're going to do. What would then be the key steps that you would see? Just give me 3, 4, or 5 key steps for getting a marketing strategy to be a decent and robust marketing strategy.
Yeah. So the building blocks are who am I targeting and what am I offering them? Those are the fundamental building blocks. And then under the targeting building block is segmentation. And segmentation done really well is powerful, but segmentation done really well is difficult. Right? And I think that's often some of the reasons why things don't move, right? We don't call it out. It's great, it's brilliant, but it's hard. I spent 6 weeks with a financial services organization working with them on their segmentation of their sector. It's hard, it's difficult, but it's the right thing to do. And if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. Yeah. So people go, oh no, I just segment them by their potential. Sure, that's easy. Good. Yeah, I agree with you. It's easy. I'm pragmatic. Fine. Call it what you like. But all I'm saying to you, though, is that just because I have a lot of patience has nothing to do with the likelihood from buying from you. So that's all. So you found all the people that have got lots of money. Great. Wonderful. And so the point around segmentation is that you just try to lay on that a piece that says, yeah, but what makes Baba tick?
Yeah.
What makes them tick? What are they looking for? You're not looking for a perfect answer to that question. You're looking for an improved answer than he's got £100 in his pocket. Because it's an unsophisticated answer to a serious question. And so on that point, segmentation, to understand it, why it's important, how do you do it? It's an imperfect. Remember, the only reason we talk about segmentation as marketers is because customization is usually not possible. Otherwise, we are all segments of one. At least that's why they use DNAs to catch criminals, right? Because there is no doubling up. Even identical twins, there are differences in their DNA. That being the case, it is impractical in most cases to try to come up with something for each individual. But just because you can't do for each individual doesn't mean you should treat everybody the same. And that's the principle of segmentation. So you find an intelligent way of organizing your customers. And someone say, well, is it different to the way the competitor does it? It probably almost certainly should be different because you're not the competitor and you're not looking through the competitor's eye. You organize and then you structure around it. Then you decide which ones you want to focus on. How are you going to find them? And then we then start to talk about what do we offer to them. And all of a sudden, some of the elements like positioning, they start to answer themselves. It's a bit like in maths. You do your working out, it's just that much easier to get to the answer than when you're trying to guess. And because we're not guessing, we're doing the hard, heavy lifting. There's this kind of, we separated the customers out. Okay, we've got this group. This is how we're going to target them. This is the offering we're going to. When it then comes to communication, I'm not going to be scratching my head in a dark room because I've built this properly. I've actually figured out that there's this groups of customers that need this, and then it is much easier to go from there. And I think that's the fundamental. And I'll say this, and I know we've not touched on digital much today. So digital is fascinating. It has been transformative to marketing and ability to engage. But what I find increasingly is that you have people who can explain to you every button Google has ever invented. But they don't know the customer. They don't understand how that relates to real. So from time to time, I used to say to people in my team, I'd say, yeah, you do realize that what you've just explained, that it's a man or woman. Honestly, I promise you, it's a real person. These are not, Google tells us what it can tell us. But remember, it's a person. So you have to still think, okay, and remember, these are real people. And they have some non-digital life as well, if they're allowed. And it's about being able to synthesize some of these things together so that we can come up with a more informed answer. Tactics has never been so easy. Strategy has never been so difficult.
Yeah, no, I think it's some invaluable points there, because I think, that I've got my sales accelerator tool and the methodology, and the first part of that is segmentation. Because if you go into the wrong segments, you're wasting your time. And the amount of time I used to say to sales and marketing teams, because the old adage with a salesperson is, especially a healthcare salesperson, they'll go to a hospital or a facility which is around the corner from the house, irrespective of whether it's part of their segment, because it's easy. And you can always get a bit of business out of everywhere, can't you? Well, yeah, you can, but what are you going to get out of there, and is it worth the effort? Because the effort you're putting in there, you could probably put into a segment that's actually perfect for your product, which is going to yield much better results. And I always, I don't know whether this is true, I've not tested it, but I tend to see that people who've been through that almost digital transformation, so they've done marketing without digital, and now they have digital, are much better than the ones who had just done it with digital, because the digital is the be all and the end all. And as you said, they're not seeing it as, no, we've always done this. Marketing hasn't changed. Marketing philosophy shouldn't have changed. The difference is the tools we now have to actually do the segmentation and do the analysis are a lot easier, because you're not having to bloody put different codes on stuff that you're sending out and try to check this and ring this person up. You can do it at a touch of a button, but you have to understand the methodology and the process, and the whole point of this, the aim of why you're doing it, rather than, well, we do digital because we've been told we need to do digital and everyone does digital. And actually, some of the worst marketing I've seen are people who know everything, as you said, about Google, they know everything about Facebook, they know everything about whatever else it may be, and all the analytical tools, but they don't fundamentally understand the aim of what they're trying to do, and therefore they miss the mark all the time, even though they're giving you data. Because, as you said, the question I'm always asking is, so what does the data tell you? Yeah. That's all I need to know. What is it you do? Why did you commission that data in the first place? Yeah. And what are you now going to do with that data? Because you telling me that we have got this many people coming to the website, and this is the conversion rate, and this is what's happening, and this is what the keywords they're searching for. Yeah, that's great. How does that help us, actually? So just move on, because obviously we've looked about different industries, and we I think we both accept that there's brilliant people in healthcare, but probably because of the environment, it isn't the one that drives marketing innovation and product innovation to the level that we would see in other organizations, and that customer focus. So what's the best, not necessarily industry, but what's the best marketing philosophy / strategy that you've seen?
So I would say that the obvious ones come to mind, and the reason is that typically the ones who do it really well, it usually just results in fantastic performance, right? You
Yeah.
see it in the sales. The companies are large, they're performing. Because remember, there's a key point around this as well, is that you have to be able to deliver the proposition. That's really, really important. Because, you could design a great proposition, never be able to deliver it, and it still falls over. So obviously the likes of your Apples and your Googles have done a phenomenal job. And when you look at it, you kind of go, yeah, you get it. Everybody uses their product. So what's the surprise, right? Everybody uses their product and continues to use their product. So I think that in the end, in my seat as a marketer, I am less impressed about the communication part of marketing, and I'm much more impressed about the strategy part, the way they tease out, the way they work on continuous innovation. They keep moving the customer on. There's I take Amazon, right? Once upon a time, these guys sold us, we used to order books from them. Then they started to get us to order all sorts of things. Then they said, well, why don't you subscribe? Because if you subscribe, Baba, what happens is that, you get some deals, like, you get special deals, you'll be able to get your orders quicker and so on. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So the question is, what happens next? And where they're going next is this whole concept of algorithmic commerce.
Yeah.
In other words, they say, well, with all due respect, Baba, we know you so well, and you trust us, that is it worth your while you trying to decide what you need? Why don't we just send it to you?
Yeah.
If you happen not to like it, which we doubt, we'll take it back. And we'll always take it back. What's the problem? Yeah, let's give it a go. And so all of a sudden, these organizations are then earned the right to be able to prescribe. They almost become like doctors. They can prescribe, and we take their prescriptions. For me, that's marketing. That's marketing. That's not adverts and TV and that is a part of the industry. But for me, marketing is that engine that creates that value, that engagement, that trust, that loyalty. And the biggest, what keeps up the likes of Amazon at night is not data or how much the analytics, it's trust.
Yeah.
That is what they've got to protect, that they don't lose the trust of their customers. And as long as they keep the trust of the customers, they can create a lot of values on the back of it. So, and I think that environment, they're ruthless about making sure that the customer gets what the customer needs and beyond. Absolutely ruthless.
And it's very interesting, because I talk about this a lot to people in companies and when you're doing consultant, because it's a lot of the stuff that you do is not revolutionary. As a marketeer,
yes,
you have to be ruthless about what you're doing, because lots of the stuff we do, lots of stuff Amazon do, lots of the stuff Apple do, it's not difficult to do, but very few people do it. And then once they've got the market, setting up a website selling stuff is easy. I mean, lots of people are doing it. Why are Amazon completely dominating that marketplace and nobody else can get close to them? Because, as you said, they fully understand their customer. They've built a level of trust, so that actually me buying something online from someone other than Amazon, you almost start thinking, oh, will it come on time? If it does come on time, will I be able to send it back? Will I get it's all that trust that you've said, that you've built up over time, that you feel 100% sure that if I order something from Amazon, I don't care whether I like it, I don't like it, it's risk-free, which then allows them to get to that next stage where they can prescribe, because you're thinking, who cares? Even before the lockdown, I was not a real online shopper. What companies have done is what Amazon have been doing for ages, is they've made it very easy that actually, if I don't like it, I can send it back and get a refund immediately. So all of a sudden, partially because I couldn't get out, but I've become more of an online shopper. But still, 99% of what I buy for myself, for my kids, for my family, I buy it from Amazon. Because even though those other companies have made it easier, they're late to the party. Amazon have built that trust. Amazon have built the model. So you think Amazon, and then they give you things like Prime, where, oh, right, I can get it. If it takes me now 3 days to get something, it's like, what? This is ridiculous. 3 days? No, I've ordered it now. I want it either this afternoon or tomorrow morning. So they've really completely covered all the bases. So on that, just taking that to its logical conclusion, then what's the worst that you've seen? And and I always say to people, because I always ask this question, I say, you don't need to give me any names because I don't want anyone getting sued.
Yes. Yeah, honestly, I think I've seen lots of terrible examples because people are complacent, right? Because remember, the reward a business gets is it's mitigated by many, many things. And sometimes you can actually be doing okay, doing a bad job. Oh, I've seen lots of terrible examples. I mean, barbers, shops that pay not even an inch of an attention to what is the customer's issue. What's the customer trying to do? What are the difficulties? Even just in small businesses and across the board, sometimes what I've seen in some businesses is that you end up that they get lucky once and they find one product and they basically just live around that, and they almost start to worship the product and forget about the customer that the product was made for. I think there are more bad examples than there are good, but always remember this is that, you and I are not, I don't know about you, I'm not a professional runner. So if we both go for a run, somebody's going to win the race.
Yeah.
The winner of the race does not become all of a sudden a star. And I think often that's what happens. So I think that if I put a spin on your question, there are lots of opportunities out there. And that's why you do need to be a little bit evangelical about this, in the sense that there are tons of opportunities to make a difference, to create value, to create a path to go faster. And I think that it's around, helping people to believe it, showing the data so that the changes can be made by those in senior leadership. And this is, if I go back right to the start of our conversation, that I said the CEO is the first CMO and the CEO is critical, because ultimately, if you think about a lot of what we're talking about here, couple of conclusions. Someone can say, "Oh, sounds interesting. I wish they'd talked about marketing."
Yeah.
Because I don't know what all this has got to do with marketing.
Yes.
And that's the point. And the argument is that this is marketing. This is marketing. I'm not suggesting that the CEO's job needs to be given to the marketing director or the marketing manager. Far from it. But what I'm saying is that to answer the marketing question properly, we do need to. Yeah, we need to. And hence the examples you have, whether they're small businesses, is around just really this point around what's the customer, what's their problem, what's their issue. I once changed my dry cleaners because the gentleman who ran the dry cleaning shop did a fantastic job, always clean, good pricing, we had good conversations. But another one opened up that picked up the clothes and dropped it back. I mean, Yes, great. Yay, somebody thought, actually, people are busy. If I made it, did it clean better? No. Was it a little bit worse? Who knows, maybe. But frankly, that convenience of I will pick up and I will drop off. And it's just those kind of things. It's not so, and it's nothing to do with the product. Everyone could do that, right? You just need a car. Yeah, and I think that in the end, I think that this is, I guess, the argument that we're making, that it's tougher in large organizations, but ultimately that is the spirit that we're saying or arguing, that if you have that permeating all functions, all departments, you will see the organization rise.
Most definitely. So on that, because we're coming to the conclusion, I could speak to you all day, but obviously we haven't got all day. If you had a piece of advice about marketing and delivering marketing excellence that you could give to your younger self, what would it be? So that person who came to me, whenever it was, I don't even want to think about when it was, but who came to me, if you could say to that person, right, for you to be excellent in marketing, after everything I've learned over the last 20 years, it'd be this, what would it be?
It'll be a few things. I think that one would be get out of the marketing department.
Yeah.
Get out of the marketing department. Spend time in production. I'm not saying going to go and visit. work, get a job, do a stint in production, manufacturing, customer services, sales. Absolutely, sales. And to be fair, we do that quite well within the healthcare sector. So that would be one, very important, very important. And obviously, no need to drive on the fact that obviously customers. I think the second thing I would say is that when you have an hypothesis that's based on insights, place proper bets. Don't dip your toe in the water. Jump in. Jump in. There are those rare moments in your career, and I look back and I think, I wish, I'd really, really gone for it rather than kind of sort of gone for it. Because there will be moments where you have those moments where the window opens and you see a clear, distinct opportunity. And I would say be brave, be courageous, go for it. And the final point I would say is that no matter how right you are or you think you are, no matter what data or intelligence or insight you think supports your argument, you must always remember that you have to sell internally and win the argument. And if you're unable to do that, if you're incapable of achieving that, it's going to be difficult. And I would say those will be some of the ones that will come to my head. And obviously they should learn marketing, but, I'm taking it for granted.
Well, thank you very much for that. As with all mine, I've probably learned more than my audience are going to learn, but I think it's been illuminating because I think the things that I take out of it is about, number one, the passion, which you evidently show. Number two, the fact that it's around the philosophy rather than the actual implementation. Implementation is obviously important, but if you don't get the philosophy right, then what are you actually implementing? And then obviously, as you've just finished there with those key points, which I think that if everybody takes those on board, then we will have a more successful marketing industry and certainly more successful within the healthcare arena. But obviously, Baba, and I'll put all your contact details below this video on the podcast and wherever I put it, because I think anyone who listens to this will understand that if you get Baba to come in and actually help you with your strategy, you can see what you're going to get. And I think that's the important thing, because I have worked in this arena for a long time, and I don't think there's many people better than Baba in terms of the way he approaches it, as you can see from what we've been talking about, and how enjoyable, I think, which is important, he will make your journey, as opposed to just coming in and saying, right, here's some 5 key points. Let's do the strategy. Let's do the critical success. Yeah, all that's great. Structure's great. We have to do it, but it's actually about impassioning people to understand what they're doing and impassioning people about their customers would be my parting thought. So thank you very much for that. And this will go up. I don't know when it will go up, but it'll go up because I've got a bit of a backlog to edit and put up. But appreciate your time and appreciate your insights.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's always great to spend time, and I look forward to the next occasion in person or however. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you.
Indeed, thank you.